All right, welcome back, Chelsea fans, to another episode of the London is Blue podcast. Of course, your favorite Chelsea podcast. I, of course, am Nick, joined today by our special guest, monthly contributor Nizaar Kinsella of the Evening Standard. Naz, how are we doing today?
Yeah, not bad. It's been a busy Christmas period for me. No break, just slogging through the matches more than ever. And now we're straight into the transfer window. We're used to it, and it's often busy, but at least Chelsea's form's improved because there's been a few Christmases that have been ruined by very bad form, and it's been actually okay, not bad. I saw a form table, and Chelsea is sort of third after Christmas, just from the four games over that period. So not too bad, really.
Yeah, we're going to talk, of course, about the January transfer window first. I think that's the thing that we're getting the most requests on right now. And so we sent up the bat signal to you yesterday, and we're like, hey, let's quickly talk about this. And then, of course, we're going to look at the upcoming slate of fixtures and see maybe how Chelsea might net out in all three competitions in the month of January. But before we do that, of course, just want to send some gratitudes to everyone. Thank you for all the 5-star reviews. Thank you for the subs on YouTube. That really does mean a lot to us. It really helps us reach new people, and that's going to be a pretty critical thing in January as we go through every sort of transfer rumor that exists. Of course, if you do want to join the Discord, Google London is Blue Discord. We're doing it straight through that platform now, not through Patreon anymore. Because we found it to be a better experience. So Brandon should have taken care of everyone who was on there, but if you're a new person, of course, let us know if you're having any issues. Contact at londonisbluepodcast.com. And look, we have some episodes coming up to end your first week of January here. Cobham Crew Special with Phil goes out on Thursday, if you're listening to this on Wednesday. It's a doozy. Brandon gave us a little bit of a sneak preview, and we're in it now for Phil. We're in the end game. And then we have a Preston North End preview on Friday for the FA Cup fixture on Saturday. So it's 5-pod week. We're back with a vengeance, and that's where we're going to start with the new year. Naz was doing a bit of perusing of your articles before the start of the show, and found that you had done some New Year's predictions, shall we say, for the Evening Standard, and just wanted to let you go through your predictions and perhaps justify your thinking.
Well, yeah, I last year I just wanted to say that I predicted Chelsea would finish in Europa League places, so maybe I was too optimistic from a Chelsea point of view. But again, I've been optimistic and gone with lifting the Carabao Cup at Wembley. I think that might happen. I mean, the favourable semi-final draw against Middlesbrough. It's not going to be that easy, but they're still a Championship club towards the top end. But you'd expect Chelsea to beat them, right? And then get to a final against Liverpool or Fulham. I'm sure some Chelsea fans will hope it's Fulham, but even Liverpool, I think, are mortal this season. I know they're high flying, but I think that Chelsea could do the job. I think it's a good way into Europe. You get to the Conference League if you win that, and it would take a lot of pressure off the group. So it would be good for Chelsea. But I do think they'll be quite inconsistent in the league. The youth of the team, I just think it's going to be tough. Like, we've had some positive steps forward, but I just see, the odd setback here and there. And when you're chasing, you can't afford too many setbacks. So, I think they might need a cup really to just guarantee Europe. But yeah, Europa League or Conference League could happen there. I put Arsenal Premier League title winners, but that was before they lost 2 in a row. I must say, I wrote it before then. And since it's sort of shaken my confidence, but it shows that I do think Arsenal should win the league based on what they've got in that squad. I know they're lacking a striker maybe, and that's why I said maybe they'll sign Ivan Toney. He's a Chelsea target. We're going to move on to transfers, but Arsenal are in there as well, and I think they need a player like that if they can get him. And then I sort of said Arteta to accumulate yellow card record for the season. Man gets a lot of yellow cards. I mean, I know Chelsea get a lot, but Arteta, he's a poorly behaved manager there. And Liverpool to miss out on title glory. Don't forget I'm from Manchester, so that might be wishful thinking. But
Had some fun with that one, did you?
yeah. I need it to happen, guys. I need it to happen.
Well,
So that's my prediction.
it will happen. It just will be City who will win the league again because they're the best team still. So, interesting.
So boring City winning the league now. It's getting
Yeah,
boring.
it's not really a prediction to list them as winning the league. It's like it's more of like reading a history book. Uh, okay, interesting. So you think Chelsea lift the Carabao Cup at Wembley? Interesting. I did predict that before the season started. So
No way.
that would be a real big coup for me. My prediction game has been real shit, so it'd be really nice to get one thing going right there. But all right, we're gonna hold you to these predictions all year. We're gonna look back and go, "What the hell, Naz?"
I got all my predictions right last year except for the Chelsea one. So I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful.
Yeah, well, just as long as Arsenal doesn't win the league and we win the Carabao Cup, we'll be just fine. Just fine. That's good. Good stuff. I love the rest of the standard crew had some wild stuff in there. I think you were the most measured by a mile. I could not believe some of the stuff I was reading in there.
I think we
Whew.
were encouraged to be wild a little bit there, but yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say. All right. Well, New Year's predictions out of the way. Everyone's feeling the positivity of the new year. Chelsea win a couple on the bounce, obviously, and feeling slightly better than where they were after Wolves. But we're going to look at the January transfer window from a couple of different angles, right? First, we'll take a look at some of the kind of current playing staff storylines that exist. Then we'll talk about some loans, things that are happening within the club. Take a quick break, come back, talk about transfer ins, transfer outs, and really try and break down what the market is for Chelsea in January as it's shaping up today, knowing that it changes all the time. And then, of course, we'll look at the upcoming fixtures and kind of predict how everything shakes out. Although we know that you think we're going to win the Carabao Cup. So there we go. First and foremost, I think the name on everyone's lips throughout December and has probably started into January as well is Conor Gallagher, right? This is a player who has been captain for the most games this season, has started every single match that he was suspended for. He is, by all accounts, one of the better performing midfielders in Europe by the Opta stats. He is, I think, Chelsea's player of the season right now, although Cole Palmer has given him a run for his money. There's also big rumors that he's a sellable asset and will be moved on to accommodate, other sorts of moves coming in. I mean, what's your read on the Conor Gallagher situation as it stands on January 3rd at 2:30 p.m. in the UK?
Yeah, this is one of those I could feel a bit confident talking about, especially because I don't think it will develop by the time the pod comes out. Sometimes you talk about something and something crazy's happened, but I don't expect that to happen with Conor. Do expect it to be a quiet January for him, which will be good news and music to, a lot of Chelsea fans' ears. But like Conor is kind of a divisive player. Some people think he's brilliant and others don't. But I think clearly we know that he's performed very well this season for Pochettino, and anyone who thinks otherwise probably isn't watching the football matches. They probably have a different opinion altogether. But I guess, let's talk about Conor Gallagher's point of view. I think that he is playing really well. He's really happy at Chelsea. He's playing every week, like you said, captaining his boyhood club. Don't forget, this is a Chelsea fan here. There's a Euros at the end of the season. Let's not forget, and a lot of players I've looked into, not just Conor, they are thinking about their international, future as well. Like, is the next 6 months going to be best served playing for this club that I'm at to get into that competition? And for Conor Gallagher, the answer is definitely yes. I mean, if he left for Spurs, would he get in the Euro squad? Would he be on the bench initially at Spurs? Like, how would it work? All that kind of thing. Like, do I even take an unknown? So I think, like, from that point of view, it's a yes. It's best to be at Chelsea. So for me, I don't see a January move from Conor's perspective because he has to agree it. Now, I think that what a lot of Chelsea fans also want to know is, like, what's Chelsea's position and why is Conor's contract running down, right? He's got 18 months left on his deal. And we all know that that puts your future in doubt at Chelsea. Like any player with 18 months left on the deal, Chelsea thinks, oh, if we get the right kind of offer, we should sell him because we are not a charity. We need to keep the money flowing. We need money coming in. We need money coming out. We don't want to be losing players on free transfers. That's a big thing from the new ownership group. When they saw Rudiger and Christensen leave on a free, they were pretty annoyed about it, and they saw the problems it caused. And I think it continues to cause problems even now, those two leaving on a free. So they want to keep the sort of transfer stuff moving. And yes, I think everyone at Chelsea acknowledges Conor Gallagher is one of the top performers. They know, they're watching it. They see that he's a great influence in the dressing room. He's a leader as well, as the captain, as the standing captain, while Reece James is out. But they need to get that contract done or he could leave. There's not been great movement on it. They have spoken to Conor Gallagher about it. They have sort of had some meetings about it with the agent and things like that, but nothing's really moved forward. So I think that I think Conor stays pretty likely in January, unless some staggering bid comes in. And I don't think there will. When I'm looking at the clubs across Europe, I don't see a bid coming in that will excite Chelsea at all. So I think Conor stays. I think then it's down to the contract talks over the next months. I don't think even Chelsea will start it until February maybe, and then from February till the end of the season, we'll see if Chelsea tie down Conor, and if not, then maybe he leaves in the summer. He's only got a year left then, and he's even more likely to leave, especially in the summer when clubs actually do have decent money. Then Conor might leave, but I think for now it's a case of Conor focused on his football. Chelsea get the best out of Conor. And we'll see if a deal is agreed off the pitch, and I think that's where this is moving towards.
What are we talking about from a contract perspective, though, here, right? I mean, he can't be on massive wages as it stands today. We know Chelsea want to keep the wage structure relatively tight compared to where it got under the previous ownership. But to give him something that's requisite with his title right now, which is captain, right, would be a big boost up, I assume, right? Relatively to where he is today. I mean, it can't be a hard deal to get done if he wants to be here and the money is in the ballpark. Am I wrong in thinking that?
Maybe I think if Chelsea really want to do it, they can just do it, right? Chelsea always have the power. Like, they've got the money, they've got the control of the situation, but it's like, if Conor's playing above his level now, if Chelsea believe that, if they give him a huge contract to stay and be, a leader, a captain sort of role, one of the future captains of this club for years to come, will he stay at that level? Will he continue? Like, what will Enzo and Caicedo's position be as well in that sort of future? Where will Lavia be? They've got Andrey Santos, like Leslie Ugachukwu. There's all these sort of considerations, like what does it mean for everyone? And I think that's where the complexity lies, really, is. And I've seen quotes from Caicedo's agent even, and he's come out on the record officially and given the number that his client's on, and he said that he's on 150k a week. That's not a huge salary for a guy who cost over 100 million. That's great news for Chelsea, but Conor will want, I'm sure, around that. He's probably one of the least paid players now, and he'll probably, if he agrees the deal, he'll be one of the most paid players. And English players have a premium. We all know that. I mean, Reece James is one of the highest paid players in the squad. I think Raheem Sterling is the highest paid player in the squad. So what is going to be the Conor Gallagher premium? That's the question. And that's not, I can't tell, I'm not going to say a number right now because I don't know. Contract talks aren't even active, but I'd assume that, it's around that sort of Caicedo money, and he's £100 million midfielder. So it's going to be interesting, those talks. I think money counts. I think squad role counts. It almost reminds me a little bit of the Mason Mount situation. And don't forget, Mount was in love with Chelsea in January last year, and then sort of fell out of love with Chelsea and ended up moving on because of contract talks. It all got nasty. So hopefully Chelsea have learned the lesson. They can handle it in the right way. These are guys that love the club. They're academy guys, and I think a lot of people want them to stay. So I think that it'll be key. The contract talks will be key, but I'm just sort of setting it up about the kind of conversations they'll have. This isn't information or transfer stuff, but this is what's going to happen, right? I'm kind of talking about the future, and this is kind of what could happen. So That's the way I'd set up the Conor Gallagher situation right now. But yeah, the good news is he's going to help Chelsea this season, in my opinion. I'm really, really sure that he'll be a Chelsea player on February 1st.
Do you see the contract length being part of the sticking point here? Because obviously Chelsea are trying to do amortization of transfers in, but I mean you're talking about kind of wages here and thinking about what a 3 to 6 year extension is it in? Is that kind of where his head is probably at?
Yeah, I think most English players would like shorter deals. That was something that happened with the Mount situation as well. Like trying to get him on 7, 8 year deal is tricky, and all English players are kind of like this. It's not their nature to go for that. They want to have another round of contract talks. That's kind of how it works. You sign a deal, you play well, and then
Yep.
you have another round of contract talks in 2 years. That's what's happened with all the Arsenal players. Saka's been in talks recently over a big new deal, and that kind of thing. So I think that's what English players like to do is sort of shorter deals, and then renegotiate and earn a lot of money over their career. There's an English premium for sure, and that's just a quirk of the way the Premier League is and English football, really.
Yep. Makes total sense. Last one in the current players grouping, Alfie Gilchrist, a guy who has given a lot of Chelsea fans some holiday joy. Last couple of weeks, you're looking at an academy player who's captained every academy level, who's finally kind of getting his chance to come on. John Terry's given him a ton of love in the media. Saw him in preseason, obviously in the States, for little bits here and there. Do you think that he is in a point where he can contribute more to this team? And this will have implications on the transfer-ins talk that we have later as a center back stroke right back or some sort of auxiliary cover? Or are you more on the man, a short-term loan could really get this guy playing and get him some valuable experience in the championship, for example?
Yeah, I think it'd be great to have him in the Championship in the future. But I think that actually Chelsea have so many injuries right now that maybe it's better to just keep him around. And I mean, maybe assess it at the end of the window. Hopefully, a Championship club, still comes in, and that kind of thing. I think that it might be better to keep him around it. It's really hard for defenders to break through as well in football these days, especially English football. Like centre backs, everyone wants a super experienced, super big, powerful, dyed in the wool centre back, and he needs experience. But I think that keep him around. Like it's great. The cameo has been great, inspiring. I mean, I think it's so underrated that tackle he made at the end of the Luton game. I mean, Doherty was putting in dangerous ball after dangerous ball. That second half, I was like, my God, don't let that guy cross the ball. But Chelsea were letting him. And then Alfie comes on, stops him, brilliant 1v1 defending, wins the ball. It's the last action of the game, boots it away, and the whistle goes, and he's celebrating it like a goal. It was just, I think it's inspiring. I think it gives everyone a lift having him on the pitch just because he feels it. And I think Chelsea need that vibe right now as well. So, yeah, keep him around for now. I think that's the attitude anyway. I think I'm sort of giving Chelsea's opinion here from what I've heard is they're going to keep him around and assess it later in the window. See where they're at with injuries. Maybe Chalobah's back and they can sort of let him go, and Chalobah can play a bigger role towards the end of the season.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think we'll obviously talk about Trev as we get into the transfer outs, but next up is loans. We are trying to figure out all of these different loan moves that happen. Obviously, Chelsea had a busy loan period in August trying to get people out and kind of shrink the size of the squad, obviously. A couple of big ones. Andrey Santos has officially been recalled as of this morning to Chelsea from Nottingham Forest, among the very worst loans that Chelsea have ever done. He got, I think, 90 minutes total of playing time or so, thereabouts for Forest. And so he's back in the squad. But as Chelsea Youth points out, he's also been selected to Brazil's squad for pre-Olympic tournament qualifying, which runs until the 11th of February. So if he's there the entire time, that, of course, limits any sort of impact he could have at Chelsea or on loan elsewhere. I think potentially 14 Premier League and Championship match days after that. So not a ton of time for him to make an impact if he does get called up to Brazil. But what are your thoughts on Santos? This has been the weirdest one of all the loans for me because it made such little sense at the time.
Yeah, I think that in Chelsea's defence, when they did loan him, I think that Forest probably had a bit of like space in midfield, but then they went and signed two midfielders on deadline day. One of them cost like 30 million and is a player that most teams in mid-table would build their team around. Sangare. He was linked with Chelsea in the past. I think Chelsea even made a bid on him, not this summer, but the summer before that. So a big player for them. And then Santos is just like holding his hands up thinking, God, I'm really up against it here. And yeah, it was a bad loan because I think it's a bad loan because he's a real talent as well. Like we expect him to play, he's good. I've seen him play now a few times in pre-season, and I was so impressed. I thought he'd
Yeah.
stay. I thought he'd stay at Chelsea. I thought he was decent, really good enough, and his pedigree is brilliant. 19 years old, Brazil international. Brazil don't give you caps for very easily. So yeah, I really like him, and I think that the plan is take the slow decision here, similar to sort of Alfie Gilchrist in a way. Just take your time. And they've sent Alex Matos out on loan. I think I might have busted your rhythm there because I think you're
Come
going to
on, ruining the whole script.
He's a midfielder. Matos has played all over the show for Chelsea, but he is a midfielder, so he's gone out. So you know that's a bit more space for Andrey Santos maybe to play. Ugochukwu is injured, so he's been getting decent minutes whenever somebody's suspended or injured. Enzo's not fully fit either, and I think Andrey can do the Enzo role. He's good on the ball, really good on the ball. He can be a destroyer, but he can play as well. So I think it's actually not a bad time for him to stick around. And you mentioned that Brazil call up as well, in the unusual like Olympic qualifiers. He loves playing for Brazil, so he's going to do that. I think. Like I've not heard for sure, but it's he loves playing for Brazil. So I think that that's going to happen, and maybe it just means he's going to stay at Chelsea. I think it's trending in that direction. Palace have asked for him, asked for some information. Palace are up for a loan of a midfielder, but yeah, it's not the most attractive. And then he's got to look at Championship after that because he can't go on loan overseas. They had Porto interested in him in the summer, but Chelsea have filled their overseas loan spots. So it's basically a case of staying at Chelsea is becoming a good outcome for Chelsea. It's a good outcome maybe for him. He can play for Brazil, get used to Chelsea, and maybe that's the best way to spend it. And then reevaluate where we're at in the summer. Either go on loan then, or maybe he's convinced Poch. But I'm pretty convinced by him. I think he's quality from what I've seen.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the need. I think I quote tweeted your tweet yesterday, but Enzo not fully fit, might not be fully fit through the end of the year if it's a hernia situation. I mean, that's a serious, difficult to manage injury.
Yeah.
Caicedo been up and down from a fitness perspective. You assume that he's going to get more fit, but we have another slate of internationals coming up in March that could, derail all of that. Connor's on fumes throughout the, as fit as he is, he was on fumes throughout the entire festive fixture period because he's played every game this year. Leslie not
Lavia.
yeah, Lavia not. We'll talk about injuries to close out the show, but like right now we have two fit first team quality midfielders. Maybe Enzo's a kind of scrap minutes guy for a little bit until he gets fitness back, but this would seem like a no-brainer to me. And in your article, it's not guaranteed that he'll stay. It was also getting some sort of attraction from Newcastle as well. So I don't understand that from a squad management perspective. When you just bring him in, have him kind of close out games and give you some rest for those who need it, and then maybe get the occasional start in a Carabao Cup match or something like that.
Yeah, I agree. And I just want to say on Newcastle, that won't happen because they've got Lewis Hall on loan, and they're not. I don't think they're cutting short Lewis Hall's loan. They're actually giving him some time, and I think he will end up going there permanently. I know again I've busted your script here,
Come on,
but
Naz.
but yeah, you can only loan one player from one club in the Premier League during the rules. So like he can't go to Newcastle, and he's not going to go permanently. That's historic interest. But yeah, I agree with you totally. And yeah, you mentioned like Enzo. He's really not looking fit. I mean, that Luton collapse, that almost collapse, that was when Enzo was on the pitch and Kunku, and you saw the weaknesses in them. And I love both players potentially for the future. And when they're fully fit and up and running, they could be real top class players. But they were a huge part of the reason why Chelsea collapsed. And if they just had a physicality, and Alfie Gilchrist has far less pedigree, but actually did way more to contribute to the draw in his very short time on the pitch. So it shows you that you've got to be pragmatic just to get over the line in these matches, and maybe Andrey can contribute something there.
You did mention Matos, obviously going to Huddersfield. This is a place where Levi Colwill had a really good loan spell a couple of years ago. Any quick thoughts on what he is going to be looking at for roughly 6 months or so?
Yeah, it's a great place to develop. I mean, any championship loan you can't sniff at. They're very hard to come by. Actually, you have to be a very good player to get a loanee, get your loanee in there, especially at like 19 years old. Tino Angeron's been there as well. Levi Colwill, Casey Palmer, for people who can remember.
Oh yeah.
Far back, he was fantastic over there. Yeah, there was also another one I'm trying to remember, but Huddersfield have a great track record with Chelsea loanees, and the staff around there are brilliant, and they kind of need the players as well. They need them to sort of survive relegation and things like that. They've sort of become a bit of a relegation mid-table type club in the Championship, but they're kind of a great location to develop, really. And the Championship's a really high level of football, so this is great. It's a great. Matos really deserves it as well. He's been really impressing people at Chelsea behind the scenes. Huddersfield won't take him lightly. They only want the best, I think, from Chelsea sort of academy. Levi Colwell's a perfect example of that. He certainly is one of the best. So, it's a great move for all parties, and that's what loan moves should be. We're talking about the Andrey Santos one. I'm expecting this is the opposite. This is what it should be like, and I'm very excited about it, actually. And his debut could be against Man City in the FA Cup. So no pressure there, Alex. Let's see how you do.
He's used to playing Man City at the youth level, obviously, and had some success there. So let's see. Final one here is Zach Sturridge. He was recalled yesterday from loan. Did not necessarily have like the most productive loan at Peterborough. Some thoughts that he could be kind of deputy cover while Chelsea sort out whatever the hell we're going to do with the left back situation. A lot of flux there between Colwill playing there and maybe not playing the best there, missing out on Kukure and Chilwell right now. Maatsen obviously not being trusted over there as a standalone left back. Do you think there's any chance that Sturridge stays with the squad for the next 6 months, or do you see them? You see him going back out on loan somewhere else?
I could certainly see him probably being in that category of Andrey Santos and Alfie Gilchrist, just sort of around the squad, acting as cover, see where we are later in the transfer window. We've still got a bit of time left. So, I think Chilwell's quite close as well. So, if Chilwell's back and feeling fit, then, it might be a case that we can loan him and things like that. So, yeah, he's useful, I think. But also remember, if Andrey Santos or Zach Sturridge play for Chelsea, they can't go on loan. So you're only allowed to play for two. We're getting to a lot of regulations here already, but if you play for two clubs on loan...
Break out the rule book, Naz. Let's slam it on the table. Come on.
If you play for two teams in a season, you're not allowed to play for a third, and that's just across the board. So, if Andrey Santos plays for Chelsea, he can't play for another club until next season, and same for Zach Sturridge. So, I think having them around and see what ends up being the best thing, but no-brainer to recall him. He wasn't playing enough at Peterborough United. They did like him there, I've been told, but it's just they actually have the best left back in League One, so it's like it was a right decision not to play Zach. He was very unfortunate, and he didn't get enough game time, so he's been recalled. But he's a very good player, actually, and I'm very excited about him. But very unlucky on that loan, unfortunately, and not a lot you can do about it, really.
Well, let's see if he ends up showing up against Preston. That'd be a very interesting play. So, look, we're going to take a quick ad break. Obviously, we have a ton more to cover with transfers. But thank you to the sponsors, and we will be right back. All right, Naz, to everyone's favorite part of this whole special is all the transfers. We're going to start with the outs, though, because we just finished the previous section talking about Zach Sturridge and the implications to the left back conundrum at Chelsea, which there has been all season, with Levi Colwill playing more minutes there than anyone else, which is not what I had on my bingo card to start the year. Let's talk about Ian Maatsen. A lot of smoke around whether Dortmund will have the capability to meet the kind of £31 million valuation that Burnley put on during the summer. And in retrospect, Chelsea probably should have taken just due to the amount of minutes that he's actually played. What are your thoughts on Ian Maatsen leaving in this window and what Chelsea might be able to get for his services?
Well, let's put it right. Chelsea did accept that Burnley bid. They were ready to sell him, but Maatsen didn't want to go to Burnley. So, he wanted to give it a go at Chelsea, and fair play to him. I always respect players take their future in their own hands, do what they want to do. And he's tried his best. He's struggled. He's played left wing, right wing, centre midfield. Not centre midfield as in like a pivot. He's been an attacking midfielder. And this is a guy who is probably a left back / left wing back. So it's been tough for him, I think, the last few months. Certainly that's what it's looked like from the outside, but he's a great kid, great professional. And he's done a job for Chelsea, actually, because they've needed his versatility. Sometimes he's the only player who can play in those positions. But for the future, I think that he's the most likely to leave in January. And if Chelsea sell players in January, it's sort of good news for people who want transfers, because they kind of need to do a one in, one out thing. They've got loads of money, Chelsea, but they don't have like much financial fair play room. You can't just keep spending forever, even if you have the money. You've got to like balance the books in terms of, fulfilling what the Premier League and UEFA want for the next few years. You've got to sort of do that. He's getting serious interest. It's not just Dortmund, but Dortmund are in really strong now. And I think that, Maatsen rejected Burnley, and he rejected Burnley because he's been there and done that. I think he wanted to try and get to the next level, try and do it with Chelsea at first. And then if he can't do it at Chelsea, I think he wants a club of similar stature. And, I know the Bundesliga is not as good as the Premier League, but Dortmund are a big club, and I could see that being of interest to him. But the other problem with football nowadays is that German clubs can't afford what English clubs can afford. Dortmund can't bid as much as Burnley. So that's the reality of the situation, and they're struggling to get a deal done. He can't go on loan there because Chelsea have filled their loan spots, as we said, with Andrey Santos. No overseas loans allowed unless they cancel a Diego Moreira one or something like that. So that can't happen. So, it's a tricky situation. I think that it could happen eventually. It might happen in summer as well. I think Chelsea might just think, we could just keep him. He's useful. He's helping us, a bit like Andrey Santos. He's a great squad player. He's versatile. He'll do a job for us. He might get better. His value might increase, a lot of things, but it's kind of trending towards an exit. I mean, I think even more than Gallagher in a way, because at least Gallagher's playing well. At least Gallagher, everything's working out for him. Like, when he wears the Chelsea badge, he's loving it. But Maatsen doesn't get on the pitch very much. He doesn't get on the pitch in the right position. So it could be a case of, it would be sensible to sell him, in my opinion. Whether that's in January, I don't know. It takes a club to bid what Chelsea want, or Chelsea lower the asking price. The other thing I wrote in my article about Maatsen was just, if Chelsea get offered a player at a good price, say like a striker, which they're sort of interested in, then they might sort of think, oh, well, maybe we can accept a bit less for Maatsen, just to keep the transfers moving, get a bit of income in, to sign him, sort of thing. So there's a lot going on there with Maatsen. It's very, very complicated, but it's sort of trending towards an exit, in the next 6 months at the very least. And maybe I'd put Dortmund as a really strong contender for his signature for sure, from what I'm hearing.
Any other teams in contention as it stands today?
Well, obviously Burnley, but West Ham have definitely got an interest, but I don't know if it's a Moyes player. Moyes likes big boys, and Maatsen's not a big boy. I've seen like AC Milan linked and people like that. I think there's a lot of European names as well that we've not really got yet. I think there's a lot of big boys in Europe waiting, and when it gets down to 12 months, they're all waiting to think, oh, Chelsea will lower their asking price when it's 12 months left on his deal, and I think Maatsen could be tempted by a massive European club, but one of those ones that don't pay as much, but give you a great opportunity. I think that's the kind of club that could end up winning the race for Maatsen.
Also noted, although by Rudy Galletti, that Trev Chalobah is being offered to clubs. He says AS Roma. Any smoke around Trev in the January transfer window?
Yeah, I think that Chelsea would sell him, but he's injured and it's not helping his market. Bayern Munich have been interested in him, Forest, Roma. So there's three teams for you. But I don't think Chelsea really are bothered about loaning players out while they've got an injury crisis as well. So it's like Roma want him on loan. I think Bayern want him on loan as well. Forest would do a deal, but I think Trev's not too interested in that. A bit like Maatsen not being interested in Burnley. These guys kind of want to push themselves to the highest level. They're willing to wait until the summer if they have to get the biggest possible club, the best possible move. But then Trevor's also injured, so it's sort of slowing down his market massively. So as of today, he's another one. I could see him staying for 6 months, get himself super fit, play a few games for Chelsea, probably mostly from the bench. And then, he's a great squad player, great to have around, great character. And then maybe, he looks in the summer. His contract's actually got loads of time on it because Chelsea renewed it last year. But yeah, it sort of looks like Chelsea are ready to sell him at some point. They've accepted also on deadline day a £25 million bid from Nottingham Forest. So it shows that Chelsea would do a deal around that sort of figure. So if people are looking at figures, I think that's the sort of figure they'd accept. So that's Chalobah's situation. Very quiet right now. But it'll either happen at the end of the window or when he's fit or maybe even not until the summer, I think.
Last one is Lewis Hall. Obviously, a lot of will he, won't he? It seems as if he's going to stay at Newcastle past the loan period that he's on. Hasn't played a whole lot despite their injury crisis for reasons passing understanding. I think he played more at Chelsea last year than he's playing in Newcastle. But what are your thoughts on Lewis Hall?
Yeah, I think he's probably struggled at Newcastle, but I don't think that means that doesn't mean that Newcastle don't rate him or anything like that. So I do think they're going to sign him. I'm not sure exactly how the mechanism of the clause works, but like all the reporting said, and my reporting's been like that the whole way through, that he's just very likely to join Newcastle at the end of his loan. It was even the word obligation was used in the Newcastle press release, so they very much know that it's going to happen. I think Chelsea fans sort of willing him to stay, but I don't think it's going to. He's going to end up at Chelsea by next season. It's not certain, but it's very unlikely he'll be at Chelsea. And I think that he's getting a lot of love at Newcastle as well. I think they expect a player to struggle like him. I mean, let's not forget, we always forget how young he is. He is so young. He's barely just turned, I think, 19. Maybe
Yeah.
just turned 19. I mean, he's been a professional player for 1 year. I mean, he's not. I think he's got to get his fitness up. He's got to know how to handle a game. He's now a big money signing for Newcastle. That's another thing to handle. At Chelsea, he was just an academy player when everyone was playing terrible, and he only needed to be better than the terrible players at Chelsea last season. Now he has to play at a club where he's a big money signing under pressure. So there's a lot to adapt to for him, and I think that Newcastle respect that. They still think he's a good player, but they're just sort of taking it a bit slow with him, and maybe that's the right thing to do. We're not in the building, and maybe young players need a bit of protecting, and that sometimes is the right thing to do,
100%. Well, that's the transfer outs section. Did I miss anyone, Naz? Anyone else sparking interest right now?
No, I always keep it like the three academy boys. They're the pure fit three.
Pure profit 3. God damn it. All right. Well, look, we're going to take a final ad break, then get into the transfer ins and the rest of the January match fixtures. So we will be right back. All right, Naz, transfer ins. People are very excited about this, although your most recent articles have suggested that this might be a quiet transfer window for Chelsea Football Club from an ins perspective. Obviously, striker being kind of the most interesting / pivotal role, with Nico Jackson heading out on AFCON duty with Senegal. You wrote that Osimhen and Toney are kind of the two favorite options for Chelsea, but both are deemed really expensive to sign. In January, we all know that January is not a phenomenal buying market anyway, and both are very expensive. Give us a quick update on those two and what Chelsea are looking at to potentially try and sign them, whether it's now or in a future window.
Yeah, I think Chelsea are like looking at all options. Sometimes like stuff randomly comes up at the end of a transfer window. Some circumstances have happened that make a striker available. But I don't think Toney and Osimhen are going to be like that. They're the kind of players you have to plan to sign. I mean, money can always force a deal. Chelsea did that last January with loads of great players. Mudryk, Enzo, and several others. So you can force a deal, but like forcing a deal with certain players is very expensive. And I think that's where Toney and Osimhen come in. Osimhen just renewed his contract in Napoli, but he's put a massive release clause in. Now, that's good. Napoli sort of accept that they're going to have to let Osimhen go at some point, but they're like, he's only going for this fee. That's their mentality. He's like, no, we're not negotiating this fee or nothing. We know what Napoli are like. They're always difficult. I mean, even getting Sarri was difficult as a manager. Never mind.
Isn't 112 million kind of what you expect to pay for him, though? Like, I was surprised that it wasn't like 180 million that they put in as a clause. Was this simply just to get the guaranteed money, basically, because his market value could potentially dip if he has a bad second half of the season or something like that?
Yeah, you're right, Nick. I think some release clauses are designed to never be met, but this is the kind of release clause where they're like, "We're happy if you meet it, but you just have to meet it. That's it. This is our price. It makes everything simple. I think a lot of players like doing that nowadays. We've seen Michael Elise's renewed his Palace deal and put in a release clause, and it's like, yeah, everyone's a winner. We're Napoli, we're not Chelsea, we're not Man United, Man City. We're not the richest, so come and spend our clause. We invite you to do so, but this is what it costs,
Yeah.
and that's the situation with Osimhen. I think Brentford are in a sort of similar situation with Toney, but he's not got a clause. But it's just like they accept they're a selling club. They're always happy to let players go, but they're in a relegation battle now. They kind of need Toney, and Buemo's out for a long time, and it would take a large amount of money, like 100 million-ish, and maybe clubs will look at that and just think, why should we overpay for Toney when he's probably cheaper in the summer? Then Brentford have time to secure a good replacement, all that kind of thing. And there's also a bit of a risk around, is he still the same player after the ban?
Yeah.
So, yeah, let Brentford rehabilitate him. Let them go through the pain of it. Let them fight against relegation while bringing Toney back, and maybe wait till the summer. So I could see that being Chelsea's calculation on those two. And then it's about how far do we drop down the list to get a striker? Do we go for a lesser striker? But will that hamper us in the future? What will it mean for Broja? What will it mean for Nkunku? What will it mean for Jackson in terms of minutes for the future? That's kind of like the calculation here. So I think Chelsea are going to really think this through. And I think part of the picture is looking at how Broja and Christopher Nkunku do now in the next few weeks while Jackson's out. Jackson being out at the AFCON is a bit of a blow for Chelsea because he's done okay. I think he's done better than many people give him credit for. But it also gives Chelsea an opportunity to look at Armando Broja and look at Nkunku. They're fit enough to play now, some minutes. They'll share the minutes up front, and we'll see if them two can fire goals. And I think Broja desperately needs a goal. Watching him play, man needs a goal. So I'd start him versus Preston, and hopefully he bags and proves to everyone, because Broja is the kind of player that almost every Premier League club would sign, and he's the kind of player that he might be struggling now, but he could burn you in the future. He could really burn you if he reaches level. Clubs like Broja, they think he's really good. So it's an interesting situation now if Broja can sort of make that spot his own and make sure that Chelsea don't sign a striker in a way.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because you mentioned like the profile of striker that Chelsea are looking for. They already did the experimental purchase of Jackson, the kind of lower transfer fee, potentially high upside version of that. We already have Broja from the academy, who's a different sort of profile of striker than Jackson is. And then Nkunku is the goal scorer, but isn't necessarily the center forward. So it's like they tried to cobble together goals from different profiles, but the Victor Osimhens of the world, that sort of profile of striker would be an impact play, right? That is the more sure thing. Although I hesitate to say that with Chelsea's recent buying record on strikers. Then if you were to go after players like Garassi or Santiago Jimenez or Benjamin Sesko or Artem Deboyex from Girona, like those sorts of profiles of strikers maybe are closer to Jackson, I would suppose, than Osimhen. Have you heard anything on the additional kind of grouping there, or anyone else that would potentially be of interest for Chelsea, or are they going to stick with like the big name, big profile guy?
Yeah, I think Chelsea know about those guys who are out there. I mean, Garassi's quite gettable because he's got a release clause. He's only like £15 million, which is crazy in this market. But yeah, he's an option. And then yeah, the other guys you say, but they're all a bit of a gamble, right? So Sesko's not playing unbelievably well, I don't think. I think he's at Leipzig now. He was at Salzburg. I don't think he's playing unbelievably well. And then yeah, Jimenez as well. Like he's not had that much time in the spotlight. He's playing in a lesser league. He's going to have similar problems to Jackson, you'd think. So it's kind of like, do we just get a body in because we need a body? And I don't think Chelsea do. And I think part of the problem that Chelsea have right now is, and this is my take, is everyone puts the pressure on the strikers, especially Jackson, but like everyone else needs to chip in. Like Gallagher's been brilliant this season, but he's not scored a goal. I think Palmer's the only one who's chipping in regularly, but a lot of his are penalties, let's be fair. Sterling, you can't guarantee on him scoring a goal. Like he wasted that chance against Wolves, which, I think he should score if he squares it. He should score if he tries to score, but he didn't do it. He did basically the worst possible thing you could do in that situation.
Yep.
So like, Chelsea and Mudrik's not getting enough goals. Like Enzo, he's been terrible at finishing. Like, and he's played attacking midfielder for half the season. So like, Chelsea need to find goals, like not just from the strikers, but around the team. And I think that even I was saying about Breuer and Jackson, Breuer and Kunku, their form's going to be interesting now. It could stop Chelsea signing a striker, but at the same time, the rest of the team, they also need to step up and help. Like, not enough goals from corners, like Thiago and Disasi. I remember Chelsea winning the league and Gary Cahill had like 7-8 goals, from corners. That sort of thing would be massive. You'd be one of Chelsea's top scorers these days with that. So yeah, that's the kind of situation Chelsea are in, is that they don't get enough goals from around the team as well. And that I think the thought of that may be happening if Poch improves the team in the next few games. I think that could sort of dampen it. And we saw Madueke score as well recently and things like that. So there's potentially goals in that squad. It's just not come so far.
Yeah, the striker situation is going to be fascinating. I think only, at least the way I'm looking at it, I'm not a reporter, but only another injury to Nkunku or Roya would potentially throw Chelsea back in for one of the other guys. I'm going to just lump them in as the other guys. And it does not seem like Toney or Osimhen is really truly available. They're like half available, but certainly not for negotiation. So interesting on the attacker. You also wrote that a player that you mentioned on the pod before, Antonio Nusa, is someone the club admire, but it's certainly not someone that they're going to chase in January. It's not the right profile of player. It's kind of the tricky winger type, of which Chelsea have a plethora of options right now. So that may be a future transfer window thing that Chelsea keep an eye on.
Yeah, probably. I think the only thing that might change it, like, is if, say, Maatsen's sold and they decide definitely not to go for a striker because Breuer and Nkunku are doing really well up front, and they just sort of think, oh, we like this guy, let's just get him in, make sure that no one else gets him. Chelsea do that sometimes. They're sort of like, let's sign a player we know other clubs want, and we'll just make sure we get him, so he's ours. And then, well, hopefully he steps up and does a job. So there is I wouldn't completely rule it out, but because Chelsea love this player, but I think everyone loves him. So yeah, it might be a wait and see, and yeah, we'll see if he even wants to come to Chelsea with sort of. Does he want to compete with Mudryk and Sterling and those guys, and Cole Palmer, who's excellent, and I think he's best positioned now right wing. So, does he want to compete with those guys? I'd say maybe not the best decision from his point of view, but that's sort of sometimes the players say no as well. So I could see that happening.
The last area that you've updated on is defender in this window, something that I was extremely surprised by, despite the injuries to the fullbacks. We talked about Claire Todibo. We talked about Diamonde from Sporting. What's going on with the defenders here? Is Chelsea really in the market for a center back, or are they looking at more fullback options? Like, I guess I would potentially get fullback if there was an injury to Gusto or someone like that. But this kind of caught me by surprise. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I think that Chelsea just doing the normal thing that clubs do, and it's sort of like 2+2=5 sometimes, but they're just going around asking, sort of projecting for the future, signing the need, and the striker situation is similar as well, in that like they're probably thinking the next two transfer windows, not just for this one. And I think that's what's happening with centre back as well. They're sort of checking out players, knowing that maybe clubs are interested in some of their targets. So like Jean-Claire Todibo is a big target for many Premier League clubs. Man United, Tottenham really went in strong initially, but sort of backed out over the fee. So like they're looking at these players that they know are going to have big markets and saying, you know what, we want to be in the conversation when they come available. So we've got Jean-Claire Todibo and Ousmane Diomande, who's a Sporting defender, very young, but playing every week at Sporting, who are top of the Portuguese league, kind of player Chelsea like. And they've sort of gone in and said, what are the conditions to sign these guys, this, that, the other. But yeah, I think your concerns are right. Chelsea have a lot of centre backs, and I think that maybe from their point of view, they wouldn't go because there's so many centre backs at Chelsea. Yeah, maybe Chelsea also just think it's more one for the future, not for now. But they're getting linked to centre backs at the minute, and that's why, because they're sort of active in the area. So if you see a centre back linked, it's probably because Chelsea have sounded out the player. But if you're talking about, are they going to pay 45 million, 50 million for a centre back in January? I'm telling you, almost certainly no. I don't see it happening at this stage, unless, like you say, injury happens, and yeah, maybe the centre back can play at full back and sort of fill in there as well. So that's the only way I could see it happening, really.
No more center backs at fullbacks, please. Look, I think that'll round out transfer talk. Obviously, we will stay in touch with you throughout January as things develop. But let's take a look at Chelsea's upcoming fixtures to close this one out, because look, I think it's fair to say festive fixtures were a bit of a mixed bag. Although Chelsea did end it on a relatively positive note with a couple wins on the trot against Palace and Luton. Not exactly the toughest competition, but they were able to get that over the line. So you kind of enter January, a bit of a quote-unquote light January, with a bit of optimism and potentially a chance to advance in 3 competitions, right? You kind of think about where they are in the league. They're 10th in the league, but only now 1 point off of Newcastle. So Chelsea on 28 points, Newcastle on 29, United on 31, Brighton on 31, West Ham on 34. That's kind of my gettable range right now. Spurs are 11 points away. It's going to be a tougher ask. But what are your thoughts on, before we get into the cup competitions, what are your thoughts about the league position and how that's kind of improved as of late?
Yeah, they've kind of been the best of the worst in the past, and now they're the worst of the best. So it's kind of that's what I see Chelsea's sort of last 2 wins of sort of that's where they've put Chelsea right now. They're in the kind of European group, and you say like they're in touching distance of teams like Man United, Newcastle, Brighton. They all have problems. West Ham playing really well, sort of thing, but still play quite bad football, and they've only got a certain amount of resources. So you'd expect Chelsea to be amongst that group. I sort of expect them to be in that group at the sort of start of the season. And yeah, it's now time to sort of make sure Chelsea established themselves in that race for at least Europa League. I mean, that's sort of where they should be, in my opinion. So yeah, league form, that's important, and then balance, the cup responsibilities. It's probably going to be quite a busy week. It's going to feel busy, I think. While the midweek games are on, the EFL Cups, they're massive games against Middlesbrough. I mean, the atmosphere against Newcastle was the best of the season. I don't know if it came across to
Oh
anyone who
yeah.
watched TV, but it was great, and it was really heartwarming. I think Chelsea needed that win, and it was only on penalties, but they needed it. They needed to get over the line. Mudryck's late goal, and Middlesbrough is going to feel massive as well. Second leg at Stamford Bridge, but first leg away is going to be big. So, yeah, I think that those games will feel big, even though they're against Championship opposition. And then very winnable games, apart from maybe Liverpool away, you'd say. So yeah, let's see where Chelsea are at, but it's looking better. I think I was very worried before the Palace game because Chelsea lost Cole Palmer and Raheem Sterling to suspension. A lot of injuries. I think they lost Leslie to injury during the match,
Yep.
and they just lost to Wolves, and it was Christmas Eve, and I was like, this is going to be a tough Christmas for Chelsea. And Palace had 2 more days extra rest, and I was like, it's looking like a bad day, that. And they got over the line there, and well played to Chelsea for that, because that was actually really tough in those circumstances. But they just got the job done. And I think that win has changed. That win might be one of the most important of the season when we look back at it. And it was a real tough moment. I know we probably don't talk about these things enough, but it was tough. It was massive, that win. And now it looks like a good picture for Chelsea, in my opinion.
So just to go through the fixtures here, only 2 Premier League fixtures in January because of the winter break that has been instituted. So you play Fulham on January 13th and Liverpool on the 31st, so the very last day of the month. In between that, you have Preston on Saturday, January 6th, Middlesbrough on Tuesday, January 9th. So 2 quick cup fixtures there to start the month, and then the home match against Middlesbrough on the 23rd. So like right after the winter break, and I think Chelsea's winter break actually gets cut a little short because of the EFL Cup, which is what it is at this point. But only 5 matches, a chance to advance in all or in both of the cup competitions, and to potentially pick up points. Do you think Chelsea end January looking up at, kind of same group, or do you think that they maybe slide into 9th or 8th in the table?
I could just see a lot of steps forward and a lot of steps back, but because the games are quite favourable, I could see them making maybe a tiny bit of progress. But you'd look at Liverpool away, I think probably not going to win that on current form. I mean, anything could change. Still a long way away. Maybe Chelsea will improve, but they've got to get better. They're still not playing as good as they need to be, in my opinion. I think they need to step it up. I mean, getting past Preston should be fine. Middlesbrough probably fine in current form, but Fulham, you could see them drawing that unless they're in better form and things like that. So I think they need to just step it up. They do need to step up performances a little bit. I thought the Luton performance was really good until the 70th minute, and when the subs happened, one team got better, one team got worse. So I think Chelsea, it's about bringing players back to get the level up. It's about improving because the players are back and the tactics are improving and all that kind of thing. So they need to try and get the level up, and the games being favourable is an opportunity to treat them maybe not like a training session, but get Breuer up to speed, get Nkunku up to speed, and things like that to just lift the level up a little bit, and maybe the break can help a few players as well. So I'm definitely more positive now, but I think Chelsea still need to progress in the level of performance needs to keep improving if they're going to achieve anything this season. That's still massively paramount.
Can we quickly touch on injuries to end this one, because it's the never-ending saga at Chelsea? My count is that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 10 current injuries. Does that sound accurate to you? It's hard to keep up with everyone, but I have Carney, Chukwuemeka, Robert Sanchez, Badiashile, Ugo Chukwu as kind of short to medium term, and then long term is Fafana, Reece James, Romeo Lavia, Marco Correa, Ben Chilwell, Trev Chalobah. Is there anyone that I'm missing in there?
Did you say Sanchez or
Yep,
if I missed?
yep. In the on the way back category.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's everyone, and then Jackson's out of the AFCON.
Yep.
Yeah, that's it, I think.
Any updates on the way back crew? The Carney Chukwuemeka's, Robert Sanchez's, Batty Shields, Ugochukwu's, any of those guys?
Yeah, Chilwell is closest, I think, to returning.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's actually getting very close. I actually spoke to him after one of the games. He was like, "I'm coming back soon. Don't worry about it," sort of thing. And he's been pictured in training recently. I don't know. I think it's partial training sessions at the minute, but he's getting close. I could see him maybe returning from the bench in the coming weeks. He'll be back in January for sure. Chalobah is expected back in January as well. So that'll be good. And Chalobah can play multiple roles, so it is quite big. I think Carney's being eased back in. He is really pushing to return in January as well, so he could be back. But they're being quite careful with him. His injury was like way worse than they expected. So he should have. Everyone thought he'd be back ages ago by now, but he sort of keeps getting pushed back and back. But he's like, when I go down to Cobham, he's training on the pitches. He's looking strong. He's sort of training with Chilwell and Chalobah, but they just keep holding him back a little bit. Sanchez isn't that far away either. But like his is an awkward injury from what Potts was saying. He was sort of saying that they're taking it week by week. He'll be out for a minimum of, I think he said 3 weeks, but it's been about 3 weeks now. And then they're just taking it week by week because he's got some kind of knee injury. It was like a bad impact injury, I think. And they're just sort of seeing how the knee reacts every time they step up his rehabilitation. They're sort of seeing how it reacts. So he could be back soon, but it's a very much a case of we're trying to bring him back through physiotherapy, through rehabilitation, that kind of thing. And it's never an exact science, and you don't know how the body's going to react when he's like back fully training and things like that. So, yeah, hopefully he can come back. But Petrovic doing a very good job, by the way, at the minute. And then from there on in, Lavia is a concern. I mean, getting re-injured, thigh injury, I think, actually. But getting injured straight away after coming into the team. That just smacks of poor conditioning generally from me. And to just play such short amount of minutes and get injured again. So his might be a case of not only getting back, but like training for a very long time to get to the level required not to miss games. So that probably summarizes it. I'm not sure on Cucurella's return date yet. He's had surgery. So, I think that's everyone, unless I've forgotten someone. But, it's hard to keep track sometimes, honestly, with these injuries. So expect Chilwell and Chalobah back. I'm pretty excited about them too. Chilwell, he could transform the team and bring a left back into left back position. So it could be quite a good thing.
Let's hope for no re-injuries in that group. That would be fantastic. Look, we covered a lot of ground here today, Naz. Appreciate your insights and reporting as always. You know where to find Naz and his work on Twitter at the Evening Standard. So please go check that out. And anything to close us out on this one?
No, not really. Just enjoy January. It won't be as chaotic as the last one, I don't think. And hopefully Chelsea just in that stage. I said it the other day to one of my friends that they're in that stage where you're growing a beard and it looks a bit rubbish for a while, but then it looks brilliant after you get past the rubbish phase. So I think Chelsea are in that phase, and hopefully it all comes together and we're like, oh, that's why they've done all this sort of mad Moneyball stuff.
Straightforward January is what we could all hope for the best possible. So, look, Chelsea fans, we will be back, of course, with transfer coverage throughout the entire month of January. But until next time, you know what to do. Keep the blue flag flying high.